Welcome to another episode of Out There with Johnny. It's been a while since the last one, and I really do apologize about that. Just so much going on and things kind of got in the way. But I want to jump back into this series. I want to jump back into some of this astrophotography. And what I want to focus on in the next couple episodes or so is, what do you do when you travel? What do you take with you? How much do you take with you? What's the best thing to take with you? What works and doesn't work per se? And I've been doing astronomy type amateur stuff since I was 10 years old. That's 53 years of doing this. Do the math, you know how old I am now. But anyway, the point is, I've tried everything from the large aperture fever stuff, 12-inch telescopes, 16-inch telescopes, massive things to pack away to try to carry with you. Small things, different refractors, acromats, apos, acros. Then you've got the reflectors and SCTs, MCTs. And after all these years and using all these different setups, equatorials, AZ, so forth and so on, I've narrowed it down to what I like to do as far as astrophotography goes and what it takes to get there for me. And when it comes to travel, which we do a lot of camping ourselves, I do traveling across the country, or I used to before COVID, maybe again once after this is hopefully all over. What can I take with me on an airplane? What can I set up remotely somewhere else if I know I'm going to have the opportunity to do so? Especially when you touch base with astro clubs across the country. So what I want to do in the next couple of series is show you some of the things that I do, what I do when I go camping, setups that I take that are simple, pros and cons. Some of the stuff you've seen before, some of it may be the first time you've seen it set up the way I've set it up. So what I want to do is I'm going to stop this video here. I'm going to reset up to show you, I'm going to kludge all this together here. This is one of my most favorite ones. I'll show you how I put all this together, and then we'll look at a couple other options that I do. And then I'll show you some results later on of what these things are able to do under the different skies. So let me get set up and I'll be right back with you. And we're back. So we're going to put this together piece by piece, starting from the ground up. I'll show you what each piece is, where I got it from, so forth and so on. And first thing you start with is your tripod. Now, this could be any size tripod with a 3/8 connection. I'm using this little one here as a demo purpose, and I'll show you why I'm using this for this particular video. But for now, I can set this up on a tabletop. The other piece that goes on this is I ordered the AZ GTI from Skywatcher, and it comes with a tripod and an extender. The tripod's, for better words, iffy. It is rather shaky. It's not the best thing if you want to do really long exposures, but for alt-as stuff, for quickies, for EAA, it's really not that bad. It's lightweight, easy to carry. You don't have to really go out and buy another tripod unless you really want to. But in this case, what I do use on it is the extender. I like this extender. I'll even use this on my regular big heavy-duty tripods because it's very well built. It's all metal. It's very sturdy. It gives me that extra head height without having to extend my tripod up or whatever. And it has another purpose, which I'll explain this later on. So the first thing we want to do is we want to twist this on here, get a nice snug connection, and that's our first step. The second step is you're going to take off this head, because inside you have the tightening knob for the 3/8 here. And then what I want to do is I'm going to use the Skywatcher's equatorial head, or actually the, I guess you would call it the, I'm not sure what you call it. I have to look it up. But I got this. This came with my original Skywatcher Adventurer, so I use it for this other device that I'm going to put on here shortly. I'm going to put this on here. It does have an arrow on it. It has an arrow here. That arrow actually shows where there's a small little divot in the track here. What you want to do is align that arrow with one of the screws and feel that screw go into that divot, and then give it a good tightening down on all three. This will keep it from spinning around on you. So now you have this part of it set up, ready to go. Now, here's the big thing. I want to do my photos. I want to do it in EQ mode, something equatorial, so I get longer exposures than I typically could with a Alt-Az setup. So you need something that can track in EQ mode. Well, the Skywatcher GT or AZ GTI came as a Alt-Az device, a tracker. But they came out with a firmware saying, hey, you can put it in EQ mode. Well, you're not going to guarantee it's going to give you great results because it wasn't designed for that. But so many of us has been using it in the EQ mode that it's actually done quite well. Now, you're not going to get 10-minute exposures with this thing, not that I'm aware of, but a couple of minutes or more is quite feasible. But I'll show you how I get through that. So you have this put together now. Now you want to put in your Alt-Az GTI. Now, the other piece about this is you need to understand is, you notice here I have a tiny head screw here. The normal hand turning wheel here, the hand turning screw, is too big. It'll hit the base of this as it turns around. So as you can see when I put this in here, if I'm spinning around with the normal head that would be here, your thumb screw here, I would actually be hitting it. So you have to replace that with a smaller screw. Home Depot, Lowe's, I think it's an M8, fits right in there, not a problem. And it holds it in place just fine. Then, once you get to that point, what you want to do is before you put anything else on it, you want to take and you want to put a counterweight bar. Now, this is a Skywatcher Adventure counterweight bar with a overthread adapter to give me the size that I need to come up and mount in here. And then it fits perfectly. And then you can actually use your Skywatcher Adventure counterweights. So it was convenient that I already had a Skywatcher Adventure Pro Series because I already had the counterweight bar, the counterweights, so forth and so on. I just had to buy the adapter for the bar. Now we've got this going on in here. The purpose of these screws down here is if your counterweight ever slips, it won't fall off and hit you on your toes or hit the concrete or whatever. And I already know from what I'm using that my balance point's right here. But when you're doing something the first time, put this on first. It's always a good idea before you ever set anything up here, you put your counterweights on first. Because the last thing you want to do is set up your expensive scope up here and if they flops over and then you end up damaging something. Not a good start of the night. Now what I want to do is I want to put the telescope on. Now, put this over here. The other thing I try to do is make sure when I'm first setting this up, my heavy counterweight is setting over a leg. I'm right above a leg. If you go between a leg, you might want to tilt over before I start getting all this stuff balanced out. One of my new favorite things is the Skywatcher Evo Guide 50 ED. Now, they designed it as a guide scope, but you can actually do deep sky with this thing. Wide field deep sky. It has, it's only a 50 millimeter lens, an aperture, but it's in a 242 millimeter focal length. And that's about the most comfortable I'm going to get with this device here. To the 250 and below, this thing works great. Anything above that, maybe not so much. Some people's had different luck. I've had, there's a guy in Italy that I converse with once in a while on Astrophotography. He uses this strictly in the AZ mode, and he's getting some absolutely fantastic things on. He's posting on Astrophotography. I'll put the links down below where you can go look at his stuff. But everything he does is in AZ, and it's on this mount in AZ. Just floors me what he can do with that. And then what I do is I bought their field flattener for this scope, and then I have my ZOW CWO ASI 294 MC Pro that I use with this. And then of course this just slips right up here in its saddle like it normally does. Put it in place. And then you get your starting makeup there. Okay. Now, just like any equatorial, you know, this thing's going to go all different directions, so forth and so on. So, spinning around. So there you go. So that takes care of that. Now, why did I mount a guide scope or finder scope mount onto this? That's because what I love to do is I love to use my ZWO ASI Air Plus or Pro with this. So I mount it physically right there on the side. Then I simply take my camera, plug it into here. I take my power, take one of my 4 ports, usually the one closest to the actual drive here, come up, keep my power there, and then last but least I have a small power source. This is a 28,000 milliamp or 2.8 amp battery that gives me 12 volts. Very light, very small. I simply plug into it for the output, and then I plug into the main power onto the ASI Air Plus. And then when I'm out, when I'm on an actual large tripod, this sets into a little case like this, and then I merely hang it off this peg in the back, so it's all hanging there. So everything's right here, and it's light enough. Grab it up here at the right place, and you can just carry it around. And all of this fits in one case, and I'll show you the case. So this is a older large Orion case I've had for several years, and all of that fits in this case. So when I'm going camping, traveling, whatever, that's it right there. Part of my luggage, throw it in the camper when we're traveling. I have another case that has all my DSLR equipment with it as well. So I'll carry that in this, and I'm set. I'm good to go for wide field at 242 focal length. So that's this in a nutshell, and it's quick and simple. Now here's the cool thing about this. All of this is controlled with my tablet. Okay, same tablet I use when I record this stuff here, just right here. And then wirelessly, wherever I'm at, I'm controlling this. Now, there's a procedure to set this up. This wirelessly talks to this, and this talks to my tablet. So everything I do on the tablet to control polar alignment, plate solving, where I want to go, all done on the tablet. This controls this wirelessly in EQ mode, and it works extremely well. And because it's a go-to, that means unlike my Star Adventure, which is a much simpler setup, I don't have to try to star hop and then frame after frame after frame after frame until I get things where I want it. This is pretty much dead centered every time using plate solving with the ZWO ASI Air Plus or Pro. I like the Plus because it has a much better range. I can sit inside my camper where it's nice and warm, and it's out doing its thing in the cold. So great setup, very portable. I love this. I will show you some results when I get them. We've had some absolutely terrible weather lately. So it's kind of hard to get out there and do anything. Haven't found a filter yet that cuts clouds. If you ever find one, let me know. So I'll conclude this episode with this setup. I'll start looking at other setups that I have. But I do also want to show results from this setup as well. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you out there.